All right, so this is going to be a very, very interesting video, I think, and probably pretty hot. It has some heavy subject matter stuff I normally don't dive into. However, I got interested in this person, Brendan Eich, because of a post that was left, a comment that was left in one of my other videos about how Mozilla went woke 10 years ago. And of course, what do? You Google it and you end up probably on Wikipedia. And of course, the final destination usually is Reddit. I have to say, love it or hate it, Reddit is an amazing place to go. And I found so much information over there. Like I said, it's a little bit like, I guess, Twitter or X. You can find good stuff and you can find bad stuff and things that are true and things that are not true at all. So who is Brendan Eich? Well, he is a co-founder of the Mozilla Foundation. Now, I'm not going to get too specific on anything here in this intro because this is an intro. I'm going to let Google's Notebook LM, which is like an AI-generated note-taking thing. It's crazy, actually. And Google has done an audio overview of this post and all of the comments in it. Yes, it summarized pretty much everything. And I think it's done a pretty good job overall. Certainly topics that I don't want to be discussing, and they have done it very, very well. So that's coming up. So Eich resigned, actually. This was in, I think it was 2014. And it arose from his past donation to a campaign opposing against same-sex marriage. And of course, done, finished, finito, termination, right? And that's, I guess, what a person threw around the word woke. Maybe that was what that person was referring to. I don't know. I am not taking sides here. Not at all. That's not the point of this video. It's just to open everyone's eyes, I suppose, into who he is and, you know, some other things that I will let Google handle in a very politically correct way. So, Google, take it away.
Ever had one of those, like, hold on, what moments scrolling through tech news? Like, seriously, the creator of JavaScript shown the door by the very company he helped build. Yeah, 2014, Brendan Eich. Buckle up, because today we're diving deep into the downfall of a tech giant, all thanks to, you guessed it, the internet doing what it does best.
And what makes this even juicier, right, is that it all went down at Mozilla, you know, the Firefox folks, the whole open source, open-minded reputation. Yet not so much this time. It was a full-on clash of values playing out on the world stage. And where are we getting this front row seat? A digital time capsule, my friend.
A Reddit thread.
Straight from the heart of the Firefox community. Users, employees, everyone piling on with their 2 cents.
Oh yeah, forget some dry, dusty history book. This is raw, unfiltered reactions straight from the people who lived it. We're talking confusion, anger, some fiercely defending Eich, others just done with Mozilla. It's a roller coaster for sure. But before we disappeared on that internet rabbit hole, set the scene for us. What exactly happened?
All right, picture this. You've poured years, heart, soul, everything into building something used by millions. I mean, we're talking shaping how the internet works. That's Brendan Eich, JavaScript, the bedrock of the web. With Mozilla since the early days, Firefox wouldn't be Firefox without him. So he's appointed CEO. Happy ending, right?
Well, you'd think so, wouldn't you? Except this isn't some heartwarming tech biopic. It's more like watching a car crash in slow motion.
You got it. See, back in 2008, Eich donated to this campaign. Right. Supporting Proposition 8, that California thing about banning same-sex marriage. Fast forward to 2014, and boom, this donation pops up just as he's becoming, like, the face of Mozilla.
Talk about terrible timing. Oh, the internet must have had opinions.
Are you kidding? It was like a wildfire. Calls for him to resign, accusations of hypocrisy, saying his personal beliefs totally at odds with Mozilla's whole inclusivity image. It exploded, and not in a good way.
So we've got this tech veteran practically built Mozilla, and suddenly he's public enemy number one. This Reddit thread we're talking about, it's like the battleground for this whole debate, right? What I find fascinating is how split people were. Did Eich jump, or was he pushed?
It's that classic he said, she said, only with, you know, a lot more code and angry tweets mixed in. Officially, resignation. But the how, the why, murky, my friend. Some users, like this one, good grief, claimed they were a Mozilla employee, insisted no one inside forced him out.
Okay.
But they admitted the pressure from outside. Immense. Public outcry, boycott threats, the whole media circus.
So not a direct order, but this pressure cooker environment, forcing his hand anyway.
That's it exactly. Good grief paints this picture, right, of Mozilla under siege. No one said, "You're out," but the noise outside was deafening. Like Eich became this lightning rod, and him stepping down was his way of protecting Mozilla from the storm.
I'm guessing not everyone bought that story, though.
Oh, absolutely not. The thread's full of folks like "Forever Alone, 2 Sex God." Yeah, real subtle. We saw it as Mozilla caving, turning their back on Eich after all he'd done. They felt like Mozilla chose politics over, actually making good software. For them, it was betrayal, plain and simple.
And that's where it gets tricky, right? Personal beliefs versus what you do for a living. On the one hand, you've got DevDisk basically saying, can't we separate the code from the coder? He wrote JavaScript. They even called Mozilla's response, well, let's just say not very brave, which, okay, tad harsh, but you see the point. Like, are we making a big deal out of nothing?
It's that classic tech world thing, right? Stick to the tech, not the politics. Like, where do I sign the petition to boycott JavaScript? Which, let's be real, is ridiculous. JavaScript's so deeply woven into how the internet works. Boycotting, it would be like boycotting, I don't know, oxygen. It's everywhere. But you see the discomfort some people had with mixing social issues and what they saw as purely technical stuff.
But then there's the other side, those who said, hold on, we're talking about Mozilla. They're supposed to be progressive, and Eich's the CEO. Actions speak louder, right?
And this one comment, really powerful from Shalur, they draw this stark comparison. Imagine, right, a KKK member trying to block interracial marriage and then being made CEO of, like the NAACP. It's jarring, but it reframes the whole thing.
Suddenly, it's not just about a donation, it's what that donation represents. They're saying being CEO, especially for Mozilla, it's not just a job title, it's embodying the company's values. And when those values seem totally at odds with your actions, yeah, that's when things get really complicated.
It's the core of it all, isn't it? Can you really separate the person from the position, the code from the coder? A question we're still asking, especially in tech, where it's so easy to put these brilliant minds on a pedestal.
Right. Like, we want to believe in this pure meritocracy of ideas, but then reality hits, and it's like, oh yeah, people are complicated. We've got histories, beliefs, and yeah, sometimes those beliefs, well, they clash with the very things we create.
And that's where this goes way beyond one CEO, one company even. This Reddit thread, it's like a tiny version of a much bigger fight, this whole freedom of speech versus freedom from consequences thing. You got people, passionate, saying Eich can support whatever he wants, that his personal politics shouldn't matter in a tech job. Classic free speech absolutism, right?
But the other side pushes back hard, saying, okay, sure, you can say whatever, but actions have consequences. For them, Eich's donation, it wasn't harmless. It hurt Mozilla's reputation, especially for users who saw themselves in the company's values. And this wasn't some abstract debate either, right? There were real-world consequences for Mozilla to deal with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This wasn't just contained to some tech forum. You see it in the thread, this ripple effect, how betrayed some longtime Firefox users felt. Like Helix 400, they'd been using Firefox for, get this, over 15 years. They publicly jumped ship to Chrome. For them, Mozilla caved, and that set a dangerous precedent.
What's interesting is it wasn't even necessarily about defending Eich's views themselves. It was the principle of the thing, right? Like, now we're imposing litmus tests on open source contributors. It gets at the heart of what open source is supposed to be: collaboration, transparency, judging the work, not the person behind it.
And that's crucial here, because Mozilla, they weren't just any software company. They were champions of open source. Their code, it's out there, developed collaboratively, often by volunteers, people who really believed in what Mozilla stood for. So when Helix 400 says they'd be just as uncomfortable if a CEO was ousted for being atheist or pro-choice, you see the fear, right? That open source, this idea of inclusivity based on a shared love for tech, not ideology, that's being eroded.
Almost like this whole thing forced the open source world to confront this uncomfortable truth. Can you really embrace all backgrounds and beliefs, but then also take a stand on things that are going to be seen as divisive? Because staying silent, sometimes that's seen as taking a side too. A tough balancing act, and this thread shows how easily it can all fall apart.
The paradox of inclusivity, right? If you want to create a space where everyone feels welcome to contribute, no matter what, how do you deal with it when someone's beliefs clash with the very foundation of that space? And who gets to draw that line? No easy answers, but the Eich situation, it throws all those complexities into sharp relief.
And we're not talking ancient history here. This was 2014, but it feels like the prequel to so much of what we're dealing with NOW. Cancel culture, corporate responsibility. Where does free speech actually end, especially online?
Exactly. I mean, think about it. The guy who created JavaScript, the thing that basically lets us talk to each other online, he's practically forced offline by those same tools. It's this weird self-destructing loop.
And that loop is getting louder. Social media, it's amplified everything. What might have been a private donation back then, now it's a public statement, open to scrutiny, backlash, the whole 9 yards. So the question is, did we learn anything from the Eich situation, or are we just going to keep repeating these cycles of outrage and division?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And I don't think there is a simple answer, some magic solution that works every time. But that doesn't mean we just give up and say, well, the internet's a dumpster fire. What are you going to do?
Right, because this isn't just some tech world drama from way back when. The Eich situation, messy as it was, it's like holding up a mirror to things we're still struggling with.
Exactly. It forces us to ask these tough questions, like how much weight does one action, one donation in this case, how much should that matter, especially years down the line in someone's career? And where's the line? Holding people accountable for their beliefs, but also respecting their right to have those beliefs even when we think they're wrong.
And it's not just CEOs, right, or people in the spotlight. Anyone working for a company with, let's be real, any kind of online presence these days, if your personal views clash with your employers, it's a minefield, especially with social media where everything's amplified, everything lasts forever.
Which is why this Reddit thread, even now, it's important. It reminds us this isn't new. These arguments about free speech, consequences, that line between who we are publicly, privately, we've been having them for years.
And what gets me is, even in this one thread, there's no clear winner, no easy answers. You've got people saying, hey, it's Eich's right, he can support whatever cause he wants, talking about how brilliant he is, separating the code from the person.
And right there next to them, you've got people who felt betrayed to their core, who felt like his beliefs just didn't belong in the Mozilla community, especially not from someone in charge.
Shows you how tough it is, right? Individual freedom, but also collective responsibility. Celebrating different ways of thinking, but also having some shared values.
And that's what makes this so fascinating, so relevant, even now. It's not a simple story with a good guy, bad guy, end of story. It's messy, it's nuanced. It's like the challenges of this connected world we live in all wrapped up in one case.
So anyone listening who's thinking, okay, interesting story, but so what? What does this have to do with me?
It has everything to do with you. Because these questions, personal beliefs, the pressure to conform, where free speech ends, those aren't stuck in 2014. They're happening right now, at work, with our friends, online, everywhere.
And yeah, maybe we're not all coding the next JavaScript, but we're all living in this digital world, all facing these same dilemmas. It's about knowing what's at stake, being willing to have those uncomfortable conversations, even when there's no easy way out.
Because the Eich situation, it's not just a warning, it's like an invitation to think about our own WN values, how we handle these complicated, messy debates. It reminds us that the world wants us to pick a side, but sometimes the best place to be is in the middle, where things aren't so black and white.
Knowing these conversations, they're not going anywhere. And maybe, just maybe, by looking back at these moments, these times the internet kind of went crazy, we can figure out a way forward with a little more empathy, a little more understanding, and a lot more talking to each other.
Couldn't put it better myself. That's all the time we have for this deep dive. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and most importantly, keep the conversation going.
And remember, the internet's always listening.